start tonight's panel with video comment editor at Telegraph, Steve Edginton, journalist Georgie Gilholy, and journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler. They're all here. I want to show you something, though, before we go any further. We're going to look at all the front pages of the papers and some other stories besides. But there's been a bit of a demo over in France because the French farmers are not very happy with the French government. And the French government are busily trying to appease them at every step of the way. You might remember what happened in the Netherlands not very long ago. This is something similar, where French farmers are threatening to blockade Paris. They're driving tractors up and down the motorways. They're spraying what can only be described as merde all over people who get in the way. They've got these huge kind of, agricultural machines. And some people are saying that they might actually somehow blockade France to such an extent that we won't get some fruits and vegetables here. But these are proper strikes, aren't they, in Europe? You know, when we look at our strikes, you just get a few people standing around with a few flags. I mean, you know, there's ASLEF, they're on strike again this week. No more trains for anybody. If you want to try and go anywhere, you might be able to get there. But nobody's spraying anything on anyone. You know, they don't look very threatening. They're just really boring. I mean, you probably dread actually seeing one of these people come up to you and talk to you at any point. But let me ask you guys, Steve, let me start with you. I mean, they do know how to do a protest in France, don't they?
They do, and it's much better it's more impressive, I suppose, in one sense, than just a random communist who's a bit smelly sat outside of a train station.
Yes.
Then you have these amazing French protests where they're literally trying to blockade Paris.
And they set fire to stuff. I mean, I saw some earlier footage on social media today of these French farmers setting fire to a load of fruit and vegetables in the back of a container truck. So the thing was on, just in flames. And they don't seem to care. They're basically complaining about environmental measures being introduced by the government. The new Prime Minister's trying to kind of buy them off, basically, and he keeps sort of changing his mind about what he's going to tell them they can do. But, it's just, it's more... I just imagine this is going to go on all year.
Well, they're literally trying to starve out Paris, which is a really fascinating... I think the last time that happened was probably in the Second World War.
Probably.
And it's funny, isn't it, that food is always an issue in Parisian protests. When you go back to the French Revolution and that famous comment, I know she never said it.
Apparently she never said it.
She never did. Let them eat cake. Let them eat cake.
Isn't the closest thing that she said to that was something like "let them eat brioche"?
It was let them eat bread. Yeah, but obviously brioche,
which is a
very
slightly
sweet bread.
Sweet form of bread. Yes, I mean that's fair enough. I mean, we've got a farm dispute going on currently here. I don't know whether we'll ever see this kind of thing. I mean, I know that there's quite a movement sort of starting on social media about, keep the farmers fed and make sure the farmers are supported and all of that. Buy local. It's not that easy to do, though, is it?
Well, Clarkson's Farm, I don't know if you watched that, but it kind of highlighted some of the issues that farmers face in the UK, where basically it's very difficult to make a living and they're reliant on the weather and things like that, so they can really have a sort of cost and a huge shock to their sort of profit margins and things like that every single year.
And a lot of them, particularly dairy farmers, face a terrible kind of, sort of product control by some of the supermarkets who make sure that they only pay a certain amount of money for the milk that they buy and the cheese that they buy and the butter that they buy. It's kind of they're in a loser's market, aren't they?
Yeah, I have to say I'm quite happy in a way that we don't have those French protesters here in the UK, because I'm sure we'd probably be complaining about it all night. I mean, whenever the eco-protesters go and lie on the roads for like half a minute, we're sort of complaining about it. And imagine if we had this in Britain.
Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like, we don't... Les Français, they love to protest. Was it Yellow Jackets, for example?
Yeah.
Like,
the Gilets jaunes.
Well, les Gilets jaunes, and they love that, and they do.
That's all stopped now, isn't it?
But they do when they do something, they do it seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I think I would
I almost think it's not very British to do that. So I don't think our farmers.
I agree. I think
our farmers wouldn't go that far, and also, like, especially our farmers now. Like, I mean, surely we've left the EU, so certain problems are not there anymore, etc. But
however, it's the net zero thing that people are upset about, though, because the net zero rules are saying to them that they have to do certain environmental manoeuvrings in which they're saying they're too expensive. I'll tell you what I would like to see, though, is one of those merde spreaders, those huge things. Next time Just Stop Oil turn up in Westminster, just spray them with, 7 buckets of whatever. What do you say, Georgia?
I agree with you that this kind of aggressive protest, as a British person, you would feel a bit weird about doing it. You
wouldn't... icky.
Though on the other hand,
so you're all too young to remember the poll tax protest, aren't you? Poll tax protests were pretty serious.
They were brutal.
Pretty serious. The mining strike, I mean, when you had all the police pitched battles with miners.
Peasants' revolt.
There was a time. Well, that's going a bit further back. I'm not that old, you know. Thanks very much.
The feudal system.
You know, I remember Margaret Thatcher. That's about it.
You do feel a bit envious though, because you kind of feel. I feel like British people maybe need to be a bit more forthright about what they want in terms of politics.
Well, because look where we've ended up. We've ended up with a government that makes laws about things they've already got laws for. I mean, tonight in the Lords, we've got, you know, the bill now coming back to Parliament and coming back to the House of Commons. We already know that there are laws that they could use to stop people coming, but yet they don't use them.
And it's an interesting point you make about us not protesting against huge issues. You talk about Rwanda, which is a great example of that, where you have this huge injustice, millions of people who surely should be angry about the fact we're putting these people up in hotels and stuff. But also net zero. I mean, we have these huge net zero rules. Our farmers aren't going out there making a huge fuss when actually they're probably impacted in a similar way to the French farmers. And just generally people with heat pumps and with all these regulations, ULEZ is another good example. Maybe the ULEZ, the sort of Blade Runners thing is one example where you can see some sort of similarities between French and British protests there. But
yeah, I mean, that's kind of non-violent protest, which we do quite well, I think.
And I think the problem is, like, especially with all of the above that you said, a lot of the public think, you know, there are, you know, people want net zero. They see climate change as a problem. They see, like, a lot of the public do agree with that.
Well, some of them do. Some of them don't. You know.
But as I said, like, you know, like, it's not a political problem, climate change. It's a problem for everyone. No matter what way you look at it.
It becomes a problem when you ask people how much money they want to spend to solve
that's the thing.
As soon as you say, how much are you willing to pay to save the planet,
and it's all about, like, for example, like getting my partner to do the to do the recycling. It's like, oh, well, no, well, China don't do it, and it's like, well,
you might as well not bother.
But that isn't the point.
I'm with him.
The point. You have to start with what you can do personally. Yeah, of course you do. Otherwise we won't get anywhere. No one will get
where most of the recycling that you do actually goes.
I don't want to think about it.
It does not go into any form of recycling whatsoever.
Mike, when I was dripping with bin juice this morning, when I was dripping with bin juice this morning.
Bin juice?
Trying to, you know, the juice at the bottom of a bin bag.
No, I don't have juice at the bottom of my bin bag. You're supposed to throw it out before
when you're trying to like sort your.
But that's the thing. I mean,
it's annoying. I don't want to do it.
My local council delivered me a plastic bucket, right, about that size.
The green one.
No, it's brown. This one. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask them to spend my money on it. But they put one outside my door, and they expect me to put food in it, and then leave it out.
That's the food caddy, Mike.
Well, I'm not doing it. Partly because I don't leave any food on the plate, because I was raised... we didn't have very much in the 1970s, so I always clear my plate because there were starving people in Africa. So you're not getting any of my bloody waste
food. It's eggshells and peelings
also,
as well.
If you put waste food out, guess what happens? You get rats, you get foxes, you get cats... You get a whole load of vermin coming to your house, and it's completely horrendous.
Do you know, Mike, my favourite clip from this show was when you were talking about net zero and differences between concrete and wood. And there was this brilliant clip where Mike was saying, we can grow concrete, and I just come back to that
It's true, and you can. I mean,
Can you explain that to us again?
How is that?
You don't know?
No.
Well, it's a long story, which I shall tell you.
Get your whiteboard out and show us.
It's one of the greatest viral clips that's ever gone around the world. It's about 50, 60 million views now. I don't have got news for you and everything. However, we need to talk about VAT and the Labour Party putting it on private school education. Now, I don't know if any of you went to private schools, but of course you did. You're a lefty. Of course you went to private school.
He's the lefty and he went to a private school.
Yeah, I mean, that's how easy it is. I mean, I had a debate with Alex Salmond about Brexit, right? And the people who were busy telling the audience that, you know, the working class have been betrayed by these Brexiteers, these horrible people, they'd all been to private school. And the people who were actually saying, actually, Brexit's quite a good thing, hadn't. So that tells you all you need to know.
It's trustafarian,
about the elites of this world. But, you know, seriously, the problem is that a lot of people are saying, actually, it's all very well for the Labour Party to put VAT on this, but actually what it will do is it will prevent an awful lot of people who are not particularly wealthy, but who save up a lot of money to put their kids into private school. They'll be priced out of the market. And then those kids will go to grammar schools, which will then have a knock-on effect, which will mean that less privileged kids will not be able to get into grammar school.
I think this is about choice, isn't it? And, you know, what you're doing here is you're putting a huge amount of pressure onto the state school system by removing the vast amounts of people who can just about afford to send their kids to
I mean, I used to be of the opinion...
I don't think it's a vast amount.
It is quite a lot, because if you think about it, there are many private schools that nobody's really ever heard of. You know, it's not all about Eton and Harrow. You know, it's not just very exclusive, very expensive public schools. It's a lot of public schools that are basically affordable for people who have got a decent sort of joint income, but they're not rolling in money.
What these schools are doing are fantastic. They're public service. They're educating
because they're taking kids out of the system,
absolutely,
which actually helps those who remain in it. A bit like people,
and they're providing high quality education.
It's like people.
See, now I don't think so. I don't think of it that way at all. Having been to private school, and I enjoyed
Was it not any good?
I made a lot of friends. I went to Haberdashers Asks in Elstree. Or can't say Asks anymore. Sorry.
Why not?
It's Haberdashers because Ask was a slave owner. So anyway,
say it here. Say it here. Anyway. Have they changed all the headed notepaper and everything? They can't mention the slave owner.
But I get emails from them quite often asking for money, and when my parents sent me there, and they sent my sister there, and it beggars belief how much they must have paid a term. I know how much they paid in fact, and I wouldn't say it now, but it's shocking amount. And I did fencing at school, thank you very much, water polo, I did, sailing on the, which is fantastic, but
you don't want other kids to have the same opportunities.
That's not what I'm saying. I don't think personally I needed that. I think I would have excelled at a state school. But I think there are really good state schools, there are really good private schools, but there's a
I agree.
There should be more of a blending of the two and work out a system whereby you'd have specific classes at a state school, etc. Or I went to a specific class to get into Oxford and Cambridge, and the teacher at the end of the class said, "What are you doing here?" Because she knew I don't push myself academically, so therefore I was in the school because that's where my parents wanted to send me. Whereas I think if I was in a school whereby I would have to work harder to do better. No, but I mean, that's
not all about you. You're making it all about your childhood. But I'm not interested. We're trying to talk about whether VAT should be added to private schools.
I agree with what Labour are doing. I think that's the right decision. They can make a lot of money from it.
Why don't we have some kind of system where we have the merits of private school blended with a nationalised state system? We did have that. We had grammar schools, we had direct grant schools, which were private schools that a certain amount of pupils, usually a quarter or so, were funded by the state to go to them, and we destroyed them in the 1960s and the 1970s.
We had state grammar schools. I went to one.
Yes, but I'm talking also about the direct grants. Destroyed them completely. So the remaining grammars that you have are a rump of what they used to be academically, and they're usually in places in the southeast and certain metropolitan areas, so only middle-class people are able to send their children there because they live in those nice areas. If we had more of a nationwide system, you would have something along those lines. It's not going to happen because it's illegal to build anymore. The Tories won't do anything about it, so I highly doubt that Labour will as well.
Well, there are still some grammars, aren't there? There's some in Kent.
Yes, but we're not allowed to build more, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, you say we're not allowed. I mean, anything's possible, but certainly not going to happen under the Labour government. But Labour destroyed the grammar school system, unfortunately.
But the Tories didn't do anything to reverse it. So.
No, they didn't, which makes them just as bad, I'm afraid. That is the problem.
So really, we should rehaul the entire system.
Well, like everything in this country,
it's not working,
everything needs a retread. The NHS needs a retread. Education needs it. The army needs it.
The trains.
Government needs it. The trains. Everything needs it. If you can find me something between now and 11 o'clock that doesn't need to be retread, I'll give you a special sip of my special liqueur here. Now, let's talk about peanut butter, because apparently somebody's discovered that peanut butter in the evening aids sleep. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of peanut butter.
I have to say, I do eat it on a digestive before I go to bed.
Do you?
Yeah, not
on a digestive.
Yeah, just some greedy.
How much, though?
Just a big scoop. Spread it on like it's a cheese spread.
Do you have it crunchy or do you have it smooth?
Crunchy.
Crunchy.
Well, it's like just a little snack.
Yeah.
Now I know that it helps me to sleep.
Well, how do you sleep? Do you sleep well?
I do sleep. I do sleep quite well. Yeah.
Do you clean your teeth after you've had it?
I cannot go to sleep without brushing my teeth.
Yeah. Well,
it's
then
a crime.
That
I think it's a crime.
Isn't it? I can't taste it.
Well, the thing, do you know, we were talking about this before the show, about peanut butter.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is that lots of kids these days, because their parents don't give them peanuts when they're kids, they then grow up to have these peanut allergies.
Oh, a peanut allergy.
So there's a huge issue where most kids
you don't give your
these
kids
days,
peanuts, though. Who gives their kids peanuts?
Yeah, you give babies peanuts. You're allowed to give baby, young like toddlers, two-year-olds.
I've had 4 kids. I never gave any of them peanuts. What are you talking about?
This is what happens in Israel.
You know,
tell us about that.
I was saying to Stephen that in Israel, there's less nut allergies nowadays because they give children these. They're kind of like What's-Its, but they're peanutty, like peanut flavour, called
Bamba.
Is
one thing, but you don't
they
give
them to little children so they're less.
Oh, to build up their immune system.
Yeah, they're bigger than
actual
peanuts. You could
peanuts,
choke on a peanut.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess in the UK we need to be stocking up on Bamba.
I'll tell you a story. My kids are sort of, there's 2 lots of them, right? 2 older, 2 younger. And the younger ones came to my flat in London once and they were quite young. And I said, oh, I've got some peanut butter for you. Gave them this peanut butter, which they wanted on toast, and they ate it and they tasted it and they said, this tastes a bit weird. It tastes a bit funny. I said, what do you mean? They said, it tastes a bit like bleach. I said, sorry? What do you mean? Anyway, it turned out it was a bottle of a jar of peanut butter that I'd had with my other kids, and it'd been in my cupboard for like 10 years. And because I don't really eat peanut butter,
it does go off.
I just kind of left it there. And it was apparently horrendous. Luckily, they survived. But, you know...
That's really good for the immune system, though, just giving them lots of bleach and things.
Well,
don't take that as advice.
Apparently it's good for COVID, apparently, if you drink bleach.
Yeah. I mean, my youngest son has never had COVID, and he never had any vaccinations, and, you know, he never wore a mask.
He had that bleachy peanut butter that you gave him.
Bleachy peanut
happy
butter.
Days.
It's like a Trumpian cure for almost everything. Absolutely brilliant. Now, what about beards? Now, they've only got 1 beard here, so I'm not going to be too harsh on you. I'm not a fan of beards, right? It says, to beard or not, so Tory MPs have been told to shave their beards in a bid to be more appealing to the electorate. I mean, they'll try anything now, right?
That is ridiculous, because people used to say that beards were shifty or that, you know, you were covering something up. But, like, beards have been...
Well, beards are very fashionable.
Beards have been fashionable for the last 20, 30 years.
Well, no, but particularly since the advent of Shoreditch, I would say.
Well, yes.
You know, the sort of the trendy, you know, the trendy beard.
Is that what you have? Do you have a trendy beard?
Right. So the thing about my beard, there's one person who hates my beard, and he is Nigel Farage. Every time I see him, he says, get rid of that left-wing beard. Honestly, I've known him a few years, and it's always, get rid of the beard, you look like a lefty, you look like Corbyn, blah, blah,
blah. But maybe that's a good thing.
Facial hair is not political. We have to, come on, surely.
But you're the lefty saying that.
But then you can say, like, blonde hair or dark hair. It's all, you know, one way or the other is political. It's ridiculous.
Well, why haven't you got a beard?
Because I can't grow one, Mike.
You can't grow one?
No.
It was all that sailing you did when you were...
No, I know. All I'm saying, you'd think I'd be a hardy, seafaring gentleman.
Yes.
But no, alas, like, I don't... My dad couldn't really grow one either. Like, just patchy and stringy, and it's not unpleasant.
Have you had one bit?
No, I've never wanted to have a beard. Who's that?
I think one thing you could say is that beards are definitely preferable to moustaches.
Oh, that's you, Sam, with a beard, isn't it?
Oh, that was the other day. That's as beard as that. That's.
Who said you couldn't grow one?
So you do have a beard.
That is not. That's
a beard.
That is excess stubble. It's not a beard. Look at his. Look how well his beard is maintained. That looks revolting.
It does. You're absolutely right. But I mean, it is a beard. There's no question.
It was just excess stubble.
No, I've just never wanted any kind of facial hair at all of any kind. The closest I came, talking about sailing, I once went sailing for about 10 days in the Caribbean, and I didn't shave, and so when I came, and it was almost reddish. It was a bit sort of Prince Harry-esque.
Well, that's the problem. My beard does go a bit ginger, which is slightly embarrassing.
Yeah.
But,
there's nothing wrong with being ginger at all.
No. Well, as you say, Prince Harry, he's not setting the best precedent for that.
No.
But I don't think, by the way, I don't think Tory MPs shaving
Tory MPs shouldn't be shaving.
How is that going to help them?
It's not going to win them any votes, let's be honest.
Because there's nothing worse either than somebody who you're normally used to seeing with a beard, and then they shave it off. And they look completely...
doesn't it reek of clutching at straws? If that's
well, I mean, I think
really as bad as we're getting.
I think we're well past that point.
Yes.
What is your view of men with beards? Because since you're a woman, the only woman here, I should ask you.
I mean, I think different people suit them, different people don't.
Do you think Steve suits it?
Yeah, we already discussed this already. He does.
Okay.
However, I think shaving a beard off at your boss's command is pretty embarrassing behaviour, and I think that either you're a likeable and charismatic politician or you're not. I think shaving your beard...
Because you get told to do it by the chief whip. Yeah, that was a bit lame, isn't it? Imagine if you shaved your beard and then you lost anyway.
Yeah.
And then, you're like...
They will.
I shaved my beard off and you've got a job.
But you know, the best Prime Minister I think Britain has ever had had a huge beard, and his name was Lord Salisbury. He was Prime Minister at the end of the 19th century. He's sort of quite obscure, but he's absolutely fantastic, worth reading about. Okay. And he had a massive bushy beard that went all the way down here. He was a great Victorian leader. So
I'm not sure I'd vote for that.
No.
It's not in this
but also, it can hide a world of problems. We were discussing it in the green room. Like, some people, you know, with a weak chin, for example, if you grow your beard slightly down, then it looks like you have a longer face. Like, you look a lot more attractive.
Well, there we are.
Give it a go, Mike.
Well, maybe Keir Starmer should grow a beard and make himself less popular. Oh, no, he couldn't, could he? He's already about as unpopular as he could possibly be. You're watching The Independent Republic of Mike Graham.